All right, folks, welcome into Module 7. Our film for this module is called To Kill a Mockingbird. It is an American film, early 60s. It is an adaptation from a novel written by a woman. This is directed by Robert Mulligan. The actors are Gregory Peck and Mary Badham as the little girl. They actually remain friends throughout Peck's life after the film. It is located and told as she wrote it, wrote the novel, in a small southern town, and told through the perspective of a young girl. Now, we've seen a couple of films, and this won't be the only one told from that kind of point of view, and we've discussed why that's important and as a narrative element to storytelling. You'll see it again here, and it's done extremely well. The film itself fits into one of our cinematic movements, and it's called the Golden Age of Hollywood. And this is right as that world starts to implode. So this is an example, and a good example, of how that system worked, with very large studios, huge staffs, large crews. The actors were under contract to studios. They had little choice in the movies they got to make unless they were really, really big. And what we're going to see here is this kind of all comes crashing down before long. So what's going on is what's so crazy about the 60s, certainly that second half and into the 70s. And we have this social upheaval, political unrest, equal rights become an issue, sexual revolution, the Vietnam, and of course the assassinations then of King and Kennedy are huge issues here, and they start to change the way America is working. Besides that, from an entertainment standpoint, most middle-class families now and above will have a television in their home. And this changes who and how often people now will go to the cinema. And it changes it drastically. All these events are combining now to kind of formulate the implosion here of that system. It kind of goes away here, but you're going to see in this film kind of its apex. So everything is slick. The sets, even the Shotgun Shack's sets, are built and designed to look that way. They have people to do that. It's an amazing piece of work, but things will all change shortly after this. The topic is about racism. It'll become very obvious to you quickly within the film, but it's important to keep in mind it's a clinical, almost a sanitized version of it, if you will. And yet it's pretty bold now to look back and say, wow, it kind of made it out. We're all kind of surprised at that, because it probably doesn't get made in the 40s or 50s. There isn't one component of the 5 that we look at for each module that stands out here. It's really the combination of all 5 and how all 5 are massaged and controlled by the studio system. So that's what we'll see here. It's high quality in terms of the technical side. I'm sure it had a very, very large budget. And yet, the writers and the director was very clever about not only tackling the issue overtly in the script, but there's a series of interesting visuals and visual metaphors in the film that you wanna pay attention to. So, the obvious theme here is racism. It is outsiders, and then who stands up for what's right and against overwhelming odds. We'll kind of see this theme in other films in the course. It's an important theme. But as they tackle racism, it's important to keep in mind that this story is approved and blessed by a studio system that's controlled by white males. So to think that it actually got made is a little bit surprising. But keep in mind it's certainly not from an African American perspective. It's told from a white perspective. The hero is a white male, and and we watch it nonetheless because of where it places itself in history. It does have what we call a traditional narrative arc. And I now have just a separate video in the context pages that explains narrative arc. I want to make it separate from the film, but I've referred to it throughout the semester, and we'll see it again going forward, and then we'll see it change. So it's important that you understand what I mean by that traditional narrative arc, so don't overlook that video. I mentioned visual metaphors. You're going to see them in here. They're not overt. You got to look for them a little bit. And what I mean by that is it's a representation of something and it's embodied in the visuals. So you're going to see the character Boo Radley. Right from the beginning, we hear about him, but we don't see him until the very end. It's kind of important to think about what does he represent as a character, and why is he brought into the film the way that he is. There's a scene where Peck's character Atticus is called in to shoot a dog. That's a metaphor as well. You need to know the information that's given in that scene. He is a crack shot. He knows how to handle and use firearms, but when he's confronted in other situations in the film, why does he not go to and resort to a firearm? So those are important things to keep an eye out for. Here's an example of a visual metaphor. I want you to pay attention to this scene and what happens, and look closely at how this is set up. All right. Cinematography is fantastic. It's very sophisticated, but also a bit restrained. If you look at the texture of this black and white, it's not like Bicycle Thieves. It's not like the 400 Blows. This is high quality film. They have processing systems. It's a very expensive undertaking. The lighting, extraordinary. For the editing, the pacing is quicker than you might think, so keep an eye on that. But like most things in a Hollywood film from this time, none of these attributes get in the way. So we're not showcasing this film for Gregory Peck. It really is all about making the editing, the cinematography, all that play a back seat to the story. And then their goal with the story is to make money. It's really simple. Great job for Peck. Others as well. Peck's is fantastic. And then the use of sound is, as you would expect in this kind of thing, it's to replicate and create that small town atmosphere. But you can hear it change from the streets and into the courtroom. All right, all that said, I'd like you to have a good experience with it, and please don't overlook the traditional arc piece that we'll use for the rest of the semester. All right, cheers, all the best.